On Friday, former presidential candidate Hilary Clinton spoke at Bloomberg's New Economic Forum in Singapore. She specifically called out things like disinformation and artificial intelligence as things to worry about moving forward in the future. But one of the things that caught everyone's eye was also comments around cryptocurrencies. She said, quote, "What looks like a very interesting and somewhat exotic effort to literally mine new coins in order to trade with them has the potential to undermining currencies, for undermining the role of the dollar as a reserve currency, for destabilizing nations, perhaps starting with small ones, but going much, much larger." She explicitly is laying out that Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are inherently opposed to other types of fiat currencies. They're central bank currencies that exist in the world today. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that. There's a strong argument that I've talked with people like MicroStrategy CEO Michael Saylor that actually the dollar is going to get stronger and stronger at the exact same time that Bitcoin continues to gain adoption as well. What would that world look like? Well, what you would see is Bitcoin rising and continuing to be seen as a decentralized digital global store of value. It simply would allow people to convert any asset into Bitcoin and hold it and not be debased by any government or central bank around the world. That store of value would preserve purchasing power and it would increase over a long period of time as long as demand continued to increase. But at the same time that the global store of value was rising in prominence and gaining adoption, the US dollar would continue to benefit from the collapse of developing nation currencies as well. Why? Well, in the United States, as an example, there is a tax regime that makes it very, very difficult to spend Bitcoin. Every time that you spend Bitcoin, you are faced with capital gains taxation. And so there's a financial incentive to simply hold the asset. We know that 70 to 80% of Bitcoin is held illiquid right now, depending on how you count that illiquidity. And so ultimately what we are watching is lots and lots of weak fiat currencies continue to fail. And everyone around the world wants dollars. They like the idea of the stability of the dollar, the faith and credit of the United States. And so there's a world in the future of coexistence between the dollar and Bitcoin, where Bitcoin serves as the global store of value, and which is the click of a button, you can convert back and forth between dollars and Bitcoin. And anytime you actually go to spend your currency, it will be in dollars, the medium of exchange. And so in that world, Bitcoin would rise to more and more prominence. It would gain larger and larger market share, but also the dollar would do the same. And so if that was to happen, these comments around destabilizing nations or in undermining a reserve currency would not necessarily be true. Instead, what we would see is we would see more adoption of a global store of value. It would eat into things like real estate or fine art or other types of store of value assets, but it wouldn't necessarily eat into the dollar being used as a medium of exchange. It's a very interesting way to look at it. It's at direct odds with the way that Hilary Clinton is talking about it in terms of her speech at the Bloomberg New Economy Forum in Singapore on Friday. I also think that there is a very deep piece that people need to pay attention to, which is that there are lots and lots of people who are very prominent or experts or have tons of experience in other areas of the world, but they're not necessarily experts on this specific type of technology. And so we have to remember that no matter how smart you are, no matter what you've accomplished in the past, if you have not spent the time, if you've not spent hundreds, if not thousands of hours studying Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, then we have to take their opinions with a grain of salt. And so ultimately, what I think will continue to occur and what I have the highest conviction in is that Bitcoin itself will continue to rise as a global store of value. The decentralized digital asset will continue to be adopted by millions and millions of people around the world, whether it's individuals, corporations, financial institutions, or nation states like El Salvador. People will realize that having a digital private property in Bitcoin where you can hold your private keys, you can store value in a place where no one can debase it, no one can confiscate it, and no one can censor your transactions. That is going to be very, very attractive in the future. So we appreciate what other people are saying, but remember, Bitcoin as a digital store of value is just getting started, in my opinion.